friends, it's good to be back, and welcome back to another episode of Straight Talk on Photography. I'm Adam Welch, and today we're going to have a look at another lens. Nutty. And that lens is this bad boy right here. It's Tamron's new SP 35mm f1.4 DI USD. It's interesting because I just learned when I was getting ready for this review that it is Tamron's 40th anniversary of the introduction of their SP line. That is their superior performance line. If you're not familiar with that, it's more or less the equivalent of Canon's L series, the luxury series, the one with the red band around it. Essentially, it's Tamron's most advanced lens line that they offer. Taking a quick walk around the lens here, you can tell it's extremely Spartan. Not a lot on there. Very good looks, as are all of Tamron's SP lines in my opinion. The only thing you have on here as far as switches go is that AF and manual focus switch. This does have full-time manual focus override, so even if you're in AF mode, you can reach up and tweak that focus if you choose. It is weather sealed. Of course, you've got that rubber gasket here on the rear of the lens that I love talking about all the time when I evaluate Tamron lenses, and it is weather sealed throughout. The focus ring here, that's all sealed. The AF manual focus switch is sealed, and it just always makes me feel really, really good. A couple of new things Tamron has introduced with this lens, mainly in the area of the coating of the lens and the autofocus mechanism. They have introduced, and I want to get this right because it's a big name. There we go. This is their all new dynamic rolling cam mechanism for their autofocus. It's kind of really cool, at least in the schematic. It has a lot of ball bearings inside of this, and it supposedly takes a lot of stress off the entire autofocus mechanism, especially when you're shooting at a wider aperture. I don't know. It seems to work really good. It's extremely quiet, not a lot of vibration. I threw it onto my old Canon 7D. And it did really well, extremely responsive, and that's what the purpose of this dynamic rolling cam is supposed to be, to make your autofocus a lot more accurate, a lot more quickly. The other thing that's new with this 35mm is the coating on the lens element. Tamron is calling it their BBAR-G2 coating. Essentially, it's a fluorine coating, but it's supposed to really cut down on ghosting and lens flare. And I didn't experience literally any of it. Of course, I was using the lens hood all the time, but it's great to know that Tamron is always at least attempting to innovate in the direction of always reducing those little aberrations that you're going to run into, especially on a fast lens like this. Oh, and speaking of the lens hood, Tamron probably hates me for this. In a way, I hate myself for being so concerned with it. But if you'll look at the lens hood, it locks. Tamron has a locking mechanism on this. I first encountered it when I tested their, I think it was a 24 to 70 f2.8 Canon some years ago, or a couple of years ago. And I don't know how I feel about it, guys. I understand the purpose. I really do. I'm not really banging the technology. The only thing is, and the purpose of it being, is that if you bump the front of the lens, your lens hood shouldn't just, spring off and lose it. That being said, I'm not sure how I feel about the fact that this is so statically attached to your lens. In my mind, if you really put a good bump on this, instead of the lens hood just giving in and popping off, I think it stands a chance of breaking either the lens hood or worse, that lens hood mount on the front of your lens. In my opinion, I don't think it's worth it. That's never been a problem, even though I have lost a lens hood, but it's never been a problem for me, the whole lens hood thing. I have to admit though that when I first started using this, I'm like, my God, I can't reach down and take my lens hood off without looking. I have to push a button. Why would you put one more step into something that really is not that complicated to begin with? It's growing on me. I think if I use this maybe another month or so, I would really get used to that locking lens hood. Everything else withstanding, the possible breakage withstanding. It's a really nice lens hood. It's very, very, very advanced in my opinion, but like I said, I just don't know how I feel about it. You may love it. It's just my opinion. In any case, I'm going to shut up about the lens hood now. Okay, a little bit more about the lens here as far as specifics. It is a 14 element lens in 10 groups. That's quite a few elements for a prime lens, which is kind of amazing how it doesn't have a lot of vignetting or chromatic aberrations, but more on that in just a second. It has 9 aperture blades on it, circular. Very, very, very nice bokeh on this lens. Again, we'll get into that in just a second. If you are familiar with Canon's 35mm f1.4, you will see that this lens is almost, in a lot of practical sense, very identical to it, or at least very, very close. They both have similar angles of view, about 63mm. They both have 72mm lens, filter threads. And the sizes are very comparable. This is about 3 by 4 inches, I believe. Yeah, 3.19 by 4.13. That's 80.9 by 104.8 millimeters. But what's really going to come in with the Canon beating this out as far as the size and the weight is the weight. Canon's weighs 1.7 pounds. This weighs 1.79 pounds, or 815 grams to Canon's 760 grams. That being said, I was testing this mainly on a Canon 5D Mark III. And with that rig, when you add in the batteries, you're pushing 5 pounds with a 35mm on the front of that 5D. But it actually balanced out really, really well. I was surprised, truthfully, to see just how balanced this short of a lens actually was. It's probably not going to be something you want to leave around your neck all day, but it is not that heavy either compared to some other lenses. And truthfully, with the performance of this, I don't think you're going to mind the weight. Now, that leads me to talking about the actual image quality, which is what we're all interested in hearing about. Before I did this review, I read a few other reviews and watched a few other videos, and people are absolutely losing their minds over the sharpness of this lens. Not only the sharpness, but the contrast and the color rendition. And it's very good. They're not wrong. I personally wasn't just blown away like I was like so many other people were with it. Again, it's extremely sharp. I'm not gonna lie, guys. All the way down to 1.4 in the center. The sharpness is absolutely outstanding. Just a tiny bit of vignetting when it's shot wide open like that. You stop down to about f2 or f2.8. Vignetting disappears. The any edge softening, which I really couldn't see much of that anyway, that all disappears. And that I want to mention this about the vignetting too. I'm almost leaning towards just stop mentioning vignetting in my reviews, because honestly, guys, usually in my post-processing, I add in a little bit of vignetting anyway. And today, it's usually so slight with these newer lenses that I don't think it's even an issue anymore, but that's just me. So yeah, truthfully, I think I would be a little bit more impressed with the sharpness and the overall performance of this if I hadn't just came off that review of the Tamron 35 to 150 millimeter. Man, that thing was just pure sex. So yeah, I think that's probably got me a little jaded. If you hadn't checked out that review, go check it out. It's one of the best lenses I've ever used. All right, so what else can I tell you about the 35 millimeter f1.4? I think you have to really take all this with a grain of salt, seeing how this thing is only $899. I know that's relatively, that's, you know, for me or anybody else, that's, you know, not a small amount of money. But when you compare the performance and everything else to, let's say, the Canon 35 millimeter f1.4, that's at the time I filmed this, I think it was going for like $1,699 US. So this might as well be half the price of that. And folks, I'm telling you, the performance, I don't think you're going to see any or that much difference in spending $800 more on a 35 millimeter prime as you will with this Tamron. And guys, that gap is just closing more and more between trying to justify spending well over $1,000 on a lens when you can get just as good or sometimes better performance and spend a lot less money. So who would get a lot out of this lens? Of course, anybody who is looking for excellent low light performance. The Tamron would be excellent for astrophotography, landscape photography, and that's the great thing about normal primes like this. When I say normal, that's a lens that is close to the field of view of the human eye. So let's say 30 to 50 millimeters, something like that. This works in a lot of situations. Oh, one more thing before I forget it, guys. It's not photography related, but you'll notice this big pom-pom on my lapel here. I got a new microphone. This was sent to me to test out. I have one that was almost identical to this that I had for a few years. I've literally almost wore the cable in two, so I was going to get a new microphone. These guys, they sent me this to test out, and so far so good. At least I like it. I want you to at least tell me what you think of the audio. Can you tell any difference? Does it sound okay? Does it sound like crap? Anyway, I'll post a link to this. This thing costs like 15 bucks. So if you're looking for a super cheap little vlogging microphone like I was, go and check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. All right, guys, I'm going to shut up about it. There will actually be a full written review of the Tamron 35mm f1.4 DI USD coming up over on Digital Photography School. And if you go and check out that written review, please do. If you have any questions, come back to the video, post them in the comments, and I will do my best to get them answered for you. I promise. So until next time, this has been Straight Talk on Photography. I'm Adam Welch. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me, taking a look at this little 35mm f1.4 from Tamron. Until next time, take care, everybody.